Wilder's work with Mel Brooks, Richard Pryor, Woody Allen and more made him one of the comedy titans of his generation. Gene Wilder was the Mad Hatter of American screen comedy. He could make you laugh without even moving, his beatific half-smile always shading into a sinister smirk, his soft-spoken manner a flimsy mask for the whirling maelstrom of mischief beneath. With his radiant blue eyes, explosion of frizzy hair and otherworldly demeanor, Wilder was an unsettling clown and an unlikely leading man. But his offbeat energy helped create some of the greatest screen comedies and biggest box office hits of his generation. Born Jerome Silbermont in Milwaukee in 1933 to a Russian Jewish immigrant father and a sickly mother who sometimes mistreated him, the young Wilder was bullied for being Jewish by other kids. As a young man, he did 2 years of military service in the psychiatry department of a U.S. Army hospital, later spending many years in analysis working on his deep-seated feelings of guilt, shame and sexual repression. For a Jewish American comedian, of course, there is no finer apprenticeship. Wilder certainly always placed his finest comic performances with an undercurrent of anguish. Tellingly, he cited Charlie Chaplin's City Lights as a key inspiration because it was funny, then sad, then both at the same time. Initially making his mark on Broadway, Wilder first registered on Hollywood's radar with his small but scene-stealing appearance in Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde 1967 all-nervy intensity and deadpan mirth. But his big break came a year later when Mel Brooks cast him in the producer's 1968 as Leo Bloom, the seethingly neurotic accountant recruited by Zero Mostel's crooked Broadway operator Max Bialystock for a money-making scam reliant on the surefire failure of a tasteless stage musical about Hitler. Where Mostel is a wrecking ball of craved energy on screen, Wilder balances him with vent-like minimalism, despite the mounting panic in his eyes. The film earned him his first Academy Award nomination and cemented his star status. Wilder's fruitful creative partnership with Brooks led to further collaborations. In the body western spoof Blazing Saddles 1972 he provides the St. Lot's calm emotional center as the Waco Kid, the legendary gunslinger with a surprisingly philosophical manner. "I must have killed more men than Cecil B. DeMille," he sighs ruefully. 2 years later, in the affectionate monochrome vintage horror pastiche Young Frankenstein 1974, Wilder stars as a hapless descendant of cinema's most infamous mad scientist, wittily blending vaudevillian shtick with stylized expressionist mannerisms. Conceived by Wilder, Young Frankenstein earned him a second Oscar nod, this time as co-writer with Brooks. Wilder and Brooks brought out the best in each other, and each of their filmographies would be unthinkable without the other. But the eccentric star's most memorable screen incarnation was in a non-Brooks project, playing the eponymous confectionery tycoon in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory 1971. Director Mel Stuart's musical adaptation of Roald Dahl's deliciously nasty children's book was a box office flop, but is now firmly established as a beloved cult classic. Wilder's multi-layer performance as Wonka, by turns menacing and playful, stern and tender, creepy and compassionate, is a masterclass in darkly surreal humor that set a new bar for generations of Batman and James Bond villains. Even today, it continues to resonate through remakes, musical tributes and an even evolving social media meme featuring Wilder grinning manically in full Mad Hatter mode. Wilder was a natural choice for Woody Allen's episodic From Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex. 1972, striking a note of Chaplin-esque empathy however when playing a doctor who falls in love with a sheep. He began directing and writing his own stunt vehicles soon afterwards, beginning with The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother 1975 and The World's Greatest Lover 1977 to rather weak Brooks affairs which nonetheless both made a handsome profit. Meanwhile, the second great screen partnership of Wilder's career was looming, playing straight man to combustible comedy legend Richard Pryor in for films over 15 years. In Arthur Hiller's comedy thriller Silver Streak 1976, he plays the closest thing to a straight romantic lead in his career as a mild-mannered books editor caught up in a Hitchcockian murder plot on a cross-country train. The humor is painfully clunky and dated now. At one point Wilder disguises himself in blackface, but his agreeable odd couple chemistry with Pryor helped make the film the box office smash. Even more lucrative was the pair's next joint effort Stir Crazy 1980 zany prison comedy directed by screen legend Sidney Poitier, which grossed more than $100 million domestically. These big numbers helped Wilder get backing for 2 further self-directed stunt vehicles, The Woman in Red 1984 and Haunted Honeymoon 1986, both co-starring his third wife, Gilda Radner. The first was a modest success which earned an Oscar for Stevie Wonder's theme song, the second a critical and commercial dud. Neither features Wilder on peak form. Wilder and Pryor teamed up again for See No Evil, Hear No Evil 1989 and Another You 1991, which ended their silver streak of box office hits. Once again, these boorish knockabout farces are hardly great memorials to Wilder's subtle comic skills. The latter would prove to be his final big screen credit, though he continued to take occasional roles in TV, winning an Emmy for a guest appearance on Will and Grace in 2003. After undergoing treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at the turn of the millennium, Wilder mostly stayed away from acting in his autumn years. With his fourth wife, Karen Boyer, he preferred to busy himself with charity work, painting and writing comic novels. More recently, as he succumbed to the Alzheimer's that would eventually hasten his death, he preferred to keep his illness hidden from the public. This was because, as his nephew Jordan Walker Perlman explains, he simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world. What a wonderful way to remember the Mad Hatter of American comedy as he sails off into a world of pure imagination.